Welcome to Shining the Light. Today we're discussing the role of technology during crisis, innovations during COVID-19, the beauty and dangers of technology going forward. Is technology key to economic recovery? The importance of STEM education, especially among people of color, leadership in technology. We are joined by Kristopher Francisco. Kristopher Francisco is pioneering the enterprise cloud as the founder and CEO of Elon, Inc. He has innovated technology infrastructure, big data, and storage architectures amongst the world's most admired technology companies. Kristopher, often known amongst the container community for contributions of Docker stats, has led internet-scale containerization architectures as well as developed the company's first cross-platform cloud during his time in high tech. Welcome, Kristopher. How are you, my brother?
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, and I'm doing great. Just continuing to innovate, so excited to be here.
Okay. So how you been, man? How you been maneuvering this COVID life, or COVID era?
Absolutely. I as a entrepreneur and a founder, I believe in being very pragmatic during these times. A lot of people have to ensure that they're providing for themselves, they're providing for their family. Luckily, we've actually at Evolut just introduced a new product and was able to this month get a Fortune 5 customer to subscribe to that product. But I've also ensured that whether I need to do consulting, I actually have a consulting entity and really try to push forward new innovations just any way they come. So I think it's very important to do all of the above.
Oh, that's cool, man. Let's go back a little bit, because I want, people to understand how important, science is right now, tech science. Can we talk a little bit about STEM fields, how important STEM fields are?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that at this time, what's so important is that if you look at the top Fortune 5 companies, 10 years ago, you would have saw traditional industry, but we've had the top technology companies just come to the forefront of that. And I think that this is a trend that's been predicted actually over the last 20 years. If you go back to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and you look at how they said that one of the fastest growing industries a long time ago, this is the information age, has been technology. And so STEM as science, technology, engineering, and math culminates in not only the biomedical, the biosciences, it culminates in technology. Innovation is the name of the game today, and the companies who are doing the most of it, it's the most important thing.
No, that's cool. Can you talk about your journey from college to Silicon Valley, including your development at the time that you spent at Chevron?
Absolutely. So I'll just give a little bit about my background, and you've so gracefully introduced me. Before Evolut, it was Apple, and before Apple, it was Chevron. And I was just humbled. I graduated from Louisiana State University, was able to go into Chevron's high performance computing group. When I first got into the company, I would go on to give them their 5-year cloud strategy, as well as really work with their major capital projects, providing a 20-year vision on how they move data from one geographic continent to another via their IMIT group. So this was really how they collaborated with other partners around the world and built new facilities, so on and so forth. And so was able to give them new technology vision as well, and was quickly picked up by Apple thereafter. Worked on Apple Pay when it was a Black project. Was able to contribute some of the first enterprise container architectures, some of the first cross-platform architectures, and a lot of new technologies, what they do with Mac OS on virtualization, so on and so forth. And so was one of the first to be a cross-platform architect and give technical direction to about 200 engineers. And so after that, after all of that, I know that's long.
No, it's good. It's good. I
was able to contribute to a piece of open source.
You know, hold on.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a story guy, so
Mm.
we want we
You love
want
the
you to
story,
tell that story. You know.
I'm going to give you the story. And so after that, I was able to uh, really contribute. I thought it was just another meetup. It was a hackathon, and I would go and contribute to a project called Docker. It's been used by over 1 billion people at this time. But back then, it was a small project, and a meetup turned into a hackathon. I would actually contribute a technology called Docker Stats. This would go to over 21 countries, be used by 500,000 people in under 48 hours. And when I started to see the sheer contribution that I could make, given that background that we've discussed, I said, I could continue to do this for a company, or I could go out and change an industry. And so I really created Evolute to go and do that, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Yeah, I know you touched a little bit on this. You know, how did you find, really a space in Silicon Valley?
I think it's very true, and the fact of the matter is, if you're like me, I was born and raised in New Orleans, and
Yeah.
was fortunate to be passionate about tech from an early age. Televised for that at 16, did some certifications. Was told that I shouldn't even go to college, but was persistent and knew that I would need to have the network and the impact beyond just pure technical training. And so, by the time you get to the Valley, I think it's important to remember that, not only as a minority, but like if you look at just the Valley in general, this is the top 10% of technologists in the Valley. And you also, as a minority, unfortunately rather, you have to be the top, 1 to 3% of that, right? And so I think that I have a formula, and I won't try to send people to my LinkedIn. This is for you guys.
We want to know about that from
article. I posted an article called "The 3 Pillars of Becoming an Expert," right, in technology. And it's education, experience, and certifications or industry validations like hackathons. And so, at any point in time, if you're really trying to carve a place in the Valley, you basically have to ask yourself, how am I being my very best? And so I continue to do that, so much so that today, and I'm going to embarrass myself, I'm probably doing too many things at this point. But I've been able to become a professor at Northeastern University, which
That's
is
wonderful, man.
U.S. World News top 10 most innovative public colleges and universities. And part of that was just because I've invested so much in education. Most of my masters, I was at Carnegie Mellon, and then I left that to create a VC-backed company.
Yeah.
But you can see that common thread of, what do I need to do next to be the best? And so that's how I live my life, fortunately, unfortunately. And it's what's allowed me to stay at the top of the game.
Kristopher, can you talk about a project that you have worked on and failed at it? What would you have done differently if you have to go back and try to do it again?
I hope not to give a cop-out response here, but I can think of a few projects, actually. I think the notion is that upward of 70% of technology projects fail. So I'm not embarrassed to say that there has been either times where, I've had to leave a role as a project was being rolled out, or, even when I jumped ship from Apple, there was still things going on, and the project was headed to success, but it wasn't complete yet, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that, one project that I think about actually was back at Chevron and their major capital projects. This was a new technology system that was, so when you look at how Chevron builds facilities, the long story short here is that they've had this ability to coordinate with facilities engineers, and just everyone building those facilities across the vendors, across the company, across operators. And we were basically deploying a system that was going to be used for the next 20 years. I got it to a place where the software was deployed in more of a development test environment. I was able to craft out the infrastructure to make sure that it had the ability to go global in terms of its success. But I found myself, having to move on to the next role. And so While I do believe that software is still in use today, I had so much bigger plans for it, and so I consider a lot of what occurred there to be to have not been to the level of success that I'd like to see it. And so I think with any failed project, it's more about what you learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what I learned about that project was actually there's a lot of patience that's needed when you start to interact with software vendors. I come from the infrastructure side, and if you pick up the phone right now, Sonny,
Mm-hmm.
you expect your phone to work, right?
Right.
But if some new software on your iPhone, crashes once or twice, you're not going to be so upset about it, right?
Right.
You're going to expect that it'll get better over time.
Mm-hmm.
So I came from the space where it was like, hey, if there's a problem, then I have a problem, and so I was very harsh at times with that particular vendor, and I learned patience from that because it wasn't a collaborative mindset. And so I think those experiences they force you to be better. They force you to understand and get context on technology, on the people who are involved in technology, and so I think it was a great learning experience.
Yeah, that's cool, man. We're going to talk about your leadership later on, but talking about leadership, I don't think Mr. Jobs, leadership style was a seventh leadership, was it? I mean, but he was very effective though, despite stories of him being ruthless and the need to be interwoven and in everything, So, I mean, I want to hear your take because I'm reading books,
Yeah. No, I think it's very important, and as a Christian, I very much focus on servant leadership. We have a model, obviously, in
Yeah.
our faith, and that focuses on being able to serve others as a means to get to a specific destination. Obviously, in spirituality, that's salvation. But in technology, that's the betterment of people, right? And so I think I have struggled personally, actually, with the leadership style of a very revered person, Steve Jobs. I personally, look up to him, and actually, I was involved with the company.
Yeah.
My first involvement, actually, tell no one. No, we're live. It was actually back when I was at Louisiana State University. I was a campus rep.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
They
I
actually,
remember you saying that.
okay.
Yeah.
And they actually flew us out to the Valley. And I kind of said, that was on Steve's time. He was still around then. But by the time I would join back again in 2013, he was no longer with us, and I believe that's to be true. And so my point being is that I think there is a strong dichotomy from being Steve wasn't self-absorbed, but he definitely, he led through his charisma. He led through what people call a reality distortion field. This idea of painting a vision that's impossible and moving people to get there despite their own belief, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there a lot of that is how do you see value in your relationships, and how do you see helping people to get to their destination? You'll see stories where Steve was, you could consider him a bully, but in his mind, he was actually being helpful. And I wouldn't say the same thing of servant leadership. I think typically very clear, but anyone that could equate that someone would have to die in order to help others would say, well, there's a lot of pain in that approach as well, right? And so, as a servant leader, you're often sacrificing yourself and putting others forward. So there's some synergies in some ways, and I try to focus on the spirit of both of those leadership styles. There's so many different leadership styles. I think if you're someone who is saying, well, how do I lead? I think you have to start off with your strong points. How do you see yourself in relationship with people? Do people appreciate you because you're the best man on the court, or do people appreciate you because you're always looking for an opportunity to give them an assist, or you're a team captain type of mindset, right? And I think that you take that and you make sure that you prioritize that in your approach, but you also recognize that what if I'm a charismatic leader, I
Mhm.
still have to be humble enough to lift someone up.
Right.
If I'm a servant leader, right,
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
still have to be strong enough to lead by the reins when people just have no clue of what the direction is. So it's always a balance that you have to achieve.
You were at Apple. I'm pretty sure you had an amazing time over there, but you decided um, to go and start your own.
Absolutely,
You
absolutely.
know, why did you decide to start your own company while you're at the peak at Apple?
So it's funny. I haven't had a chance to talk to too many people about this, but
That's what I want to know.
yeah. But this is a good question. I was quite young when I was at Apple or kicked off at Apple. I've also continued to give direction in multiple ways and insights at the company. Um, but I found that I started to look into people's dreams. What are people hoping for? And I started to evaluate Steve Jobs wasn't just a leader, he was a leader of his time, right?
Mhm.
He goes down in history and will continue to go down in history as someone who changed the world, changed the world.
One of the best, actually.
And I started to look at that and I said, was Steve amazing because he was part of a big technology company?
Mhm.
Or was Steve amazing because he got out there, he looked at the world and said, I can change this. I can make people more productive. I can be more effective in how we bring technology into the household.
Mhm.
Machines aren't just these work things, they're how people live their lives. So I want to make it something that people want to interact with. I want to make it something beautiful, which is
Right.
which is part of the reason I fell in love with both Apple and the Valley.
Mhm.
And I would say that when I started to look at it, it was his entrepreneurial mind and pioneering mind, the ability to take things that were never before thought of and make them reality. And so I said I could continue my next 20 or 30 years working as a part of the vision that he created, which I
Right.
think is a very admirable thing. I never had hope for anything more until I
Right.
started to learn more about entrepreneurship.
Right.
Or I could go in and I could do the same. I could go and create technology that people had never even considered to be possible. I could change people's lives and help them to create things that they never thought they could, and I could go out and create an impact that
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
was never before seen and hopefully revered by the world. So that's the journey that I'm on.
So as you started your own company, how did you get funding?
Mhm.
You go the traditional way of moving around and pitching, or I know you are connected with Founder Institute,
Yeah.
which is world's largest pre-seed startup accelerator, right?
Mhm.
Did that relationship help your position to launch or to excel? Uh,
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so funny because I've also been through the Alchemist Accelerator, Forbes' #1 B2B accelerator,
mhm.
and I look at it, and the reason that I'm still in the game, it's been a bit of a journey, right?
Uh-huh.
Yes, we have a fundraise. We're also actually quite successful in our next fundraise as we fundraise right now.
Yeah.
Um, and so we've been fortunate to have a top 3 VC through their Scout Fund. Lightspeed come in and put dollars into us, and again that's through our Scout New Age Capital, and just really continue to be successful on the fundraising tip. And I would say that going back to the Founder Institute helped me to understand the cultural and lifestyle journey of a founder. So whereas I've seen many people at the accelerator phase jump in at that and kind of fall off because the acceleration didn't happen. I was given the tools to know how to look at investors or how to
Yeah.
pitch my company to customers and ask the right questions to iterate my product, my team,
Yeah.
move forward traction, get to investment. And as I now stay with starts with heart, have spiritual support in that journey. Uh,
Right.
and so the Founder Institute was really valuable in that regard. I think a lot of people struggle sometimes when they look at like how do you get to success, and it's kind of like Shark Tank every day over there. And so you really get to a place where you know how to move forward your idea.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into what you do. I really find it fascinating. This technology of the container technology. The infrastructure, the logistics. The packaging of software. I really find it really fascinating. Can you jump into that? Can you explain what you guys do? As far as container technology is concerned, please.
Absolutely, absolutely. I like to use a bit of a phone analogy. And imagine you have 10 cell phones that you're carrying around, and you can only do one thing on each phone. You could play a game on one phone, send a message on another phone, send an email. Like, it's pretty costly to carry around tons of phones, right?
Right.
Well, whenever you go to apple.com, google.com, facebook.com, you're hitting these huge data centers that there's systems in there that can only do one thing and one thing well. So when the truth is that just like your phone, it can do over 119 things well, and it has a easy to use user interface. When you go to these large companies and their data centers, those servers can actually do over 100 things well as well. And so what we're doing is allowing that capability to become true through the lightweight packaging of software, just like an Apple app would have, through the very easy to use compute and management, and allowing you to do that both in the cloud and at the edge. And so again, just like bringing all those 10 devices into one device, as it should be.
One device, yeah.
And being able to have that at scale, we tend to, in the first year, we might save, if you spend 4.1 million on 500 servers, which is the average for just kind of running on those servers, we would be the $72,000 equivalent. We're able to do it much faster. We're much more scalable, and we really do make it simple for enterprise IT managers to run, just like an Apple Siri or Google Search would do on their backend with their core software. So yes, it's been exciting to introduce that type of capability. Steve said this to his early Mac team. He said, "Hey guys, we need to boot the operating system or make the operating system boot 20 seconds faster." And they looked at him and they were like, "Who cares about 20 seconds?" And he said, this was the early Mac team. He said, if you go and you look at all the systems that we have out now and you make them all boot faster, 20 seconds faster, based on that time, we could go to the moon and back. That's how much time was on the number of systems at 20-second intervals. And so with the technology that we're creating, we're actually allowing for software and systems to boot much faster, to deploy, to scale much faster. And when an enterprise uses it at scale, they're basically seeing that they're able to go to the moon and back with their technology infrastructure. It makes them much more faster, much more resilient, and much more competitive in the cloud.
Enterprise data can accumulate rapidly under normal circumstances. Since the pandemic, we have seen the rapid growth of cloud applications such as Zoom and G Suite, Office 365, and Slack, right? Look at these numbers, Chris. At one point in 1 week, Office 365 jumped from 32 million to 44 million users. In December alone, 2019, Zoom alone had 10 million users, and now they have over 200 million users as we speak. What are the side effects of growing this fast?
Well, despite the privacy issues that Zoom came across, and they responded admirably, I think it shows how the power of technology can just reach that level of scale. You have to think about it. Several hundred, over just 100 or 20 years ago, the ability to go from that many users for a specific customer base to 100x or so is would have been like unheard of for any product or any company. And so I think that to see that level of change is just phenomenal. It also shows how no matter how small your company is right now, if you're out there, you're creating a new idea. If your idea is changing people's lives, you'll never know what that event is that will come and allow you to scale your software or scale your company to just reach the masses. And even for ourselves, where we've helped out not only on containerization, but on the infrastructure side of things, right? How you do the actual compute and communications. We're seeing that a lot of that digital transformation that people are talking about is being demanded right now. We all have to be remote. We all have to find ways to collaborate. We can't go into a data center, right? We've heard of CEOs who had their QuickBooks for lack of a better term, in a data center, and they couldn't get to it after COVID-19 hit, right? So again, it's been interesting to see how technology companies and new technologies have been able to accelerate the value that we need right now during these crazy times.
But can you talk about how COVID-19, since we're talking about COVID-19, impacted or impact the data management market?
So when you start to look at how that's impacting the market, I think it really depends on technology, right? If you're a technology, I've talked to technology companies who previously served food restaurants and food companies. A lot of that is not doing so hot right now, and I've seen them pivot over to being able to service the door dashes and the take home orders, right? So I think right now for many companies, there is a big change happening, and if you're not starting with, hey, the times are different. How do I adjust to my customers' needs? How do I adjust to the consumer needs that's taking place during the pandemic? Or, we've also seen many things in terms of George Floyd and things that have happened with that. If you're in corporate responsibility right now and you're not figuring out how to bring the most intelligent and how to invest in your people who are minorities right now, then you're having the wrong conversation. So I think these events, and as close to heart as they are, everyone has to deal with them, and we're seeing the industry do somewhat good at taking those transitions, and I think it's extremely important and valuable for the ones who come across on the other side.
So is technology key to economic recovery moving forward?
I think it's more critical than most people could imagine. I think that there's 100 companies that have not been formed. I think a lot of people think that we're going to go back to normal tomorrow. We've been saying that since March 6th. And I'm not sure about you, but I don't see a lot of patterns changing as different as they were a month ago, right? I've seen people jump and kind of, start to do more, but I've also seen us go back now and say, well, we need to be more conservative and start to spread too fast. So I think that right now, if whether you're a large corporation or you're a startup, if you're not preparing for things to be remote, if you're not preparing, even in ministry, right? If you're not trying to reach your people or trying to reach new people in ways that are remote, I think that you're having the wrong conversation. So I think that this time is the time to innovate, and there's just so many new ways to connect with people. TikTok has shown us that, right?
Yeah.
So many new ways to really put out that technology. 5G is very interesting because it offers performance improvements on the communications, but what does that mean? Who cares about that? It also actually introduces some new ways to actually work with software and actually evolve. So we've recently joined the 5G Open Innovation Lab, which really focuses on that edge computing and making the best use of 5G. And you'll see things that consumers love, right? We all love the ability we want to stream in 4K video, right? We want to have video chats that are crisp and clear with tons of different people, and we want that to be beautiful. We want to do new technologies, augmented reality. We want to have things pop up out of our phone and show up visually, and do that with connections, right?
Yeah.
So we want to do these new technologies, but I would say that it also has a really big impact for business. And for business, what this means is, let's say that you're an energy company, maybe you're Chevron, you're in the middle of the ocean, you need faster connectivity out there, right? People, today we're at 10% of data at the edge. Over the next 2 years, we're going to have 75% of data moving to the edge, moving into our homes, where just like when you say, hey, Siri, do this, and I'm sure Siri's going to respond right now, you want that capability with just about everything that you do, even on the business side. People want to be closer to their data. And so the ability to make that transition is by using technologies like 5G that improve the performance, but they also improve how you can experience application software and data close to you, and just have completely new experiences.
Wow, that's cool. I know some big data analytics are already being used by CDC and other institutions to track cases of COVID-19, right? Chris, how far are we using machine learning, AI, and the like to detect and prevent outbreaks or pandemics?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that as they've tracked back through the sequence of events, part of this is purely information, right? The ability to see trends that are occurring and do things about them early on. This isn't a big data problem. This is a communications problem. This is a budget problem. This is perhaps how we respond as a community of people in a specific country problem, and I'll put it that way.
Okay.
And so at the same time, I think that I was actually so again, as a professor, I've been speaking to some other professors from Carnegie Mellon, Arizona State, and people who are in kind of the biomedical and viral sciences, and they've talked about the data points are out there, and the big data is available to us, and so the question is, what are the information sources that would lead us to being able to predict this? From what I can see, that data is available. Growth of a specific population having a unknown, right, disease, right, that's occurring and getting to people in a way that is causing an increase in death rate. An unknown treatment that, when treated as a traditional virus, is not helping people to overcome that at a greater rate, a greater mortality rate. I think that can be done at a micro level. The big data today could even track that on a city, a hospital. It could track that. We could track that just by looking at things such as the amount of people who are increasing prescriptions in the store, right? There's so many different data points that we could use. And so I think that what we have to do as a society, and perhaps with those experts, is to say, what are the key data points, and the big data technology is here today that can stream that across the world and detect that. It's actually quite simple.
Wow, that's fascinating. Let's talk a little bit about technology as a whole, because technology can be beautiful. Technology can also destroy. I was actually this past week I was reading this article. Elon Musk. He's talking about implanting more like a little chip, like 8mm, something like that, chip on your scalp.
Okay.
And it will have this fiber threads going down into your neurons or listening to your neurons, right?
Okay.
With some sort of a little computer behind your ear, something like that, that interfaces with your gadget or with some other computers, because they're using the Bluetooth to do that.
So I'll talk about it a bit, and it's funny because Adeo Resi, who is over the Founder Institute, he's had history with Elon, I believe, college roommates or something to that effect. And so Elon gets to put out ideas that many of us would not be able to put out and be received for that. I would say that this is, with any technology you come out with, you want to start small, right? And when I hear something like that, my first thought is, well, if Elon came to my house today and he said, "Hey, Kristopher, I want you to be the test bed for this. Would I be the first one to sign up? Probably not, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that you want to be able to validate that whatever you're doing here is going to really change the lives of people.
Yeah.
You want to start small, and I hate to recommend anything like,
I like what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, anything like testing on animals or anything like that. But I mean, obviously, you have to get FDA approval when you're working with the human body, right? And so I don't think that Elon has done this, by the way.
Yeah.
But the point is that you want to bring use cases that are pragmatic first, and maybe you're doing this with patients who are already either have a loss of function or who are already at a more terminal state, and you're improving function for them, or you're improving recovery for them.
That's exactly what he says. He says some of these things that want to try to activate some of the limbs or parts that are already damaged.
Okay,
right?
okay. No, and I haven't had that context, but no. So I think from that regard, if the data presents itself that it's safe and it's able to do those things, I think it's an exciting thing.
Okay, and that you'll be able to play, game just with your mind, not, touching it with your finger. But let's just leave it over there.
Yeah. Well, if you go back to the movie I, Robot, and it's probably a bad example.
I have that movie.
and I think that obviously software can evolve. We call it genetic computing, but I think that there are ways to. I mean, as human creators of technology, right? I think there's ways to control software in a way that allows it to be safe. I think that if we can trust everything from our phones and our laptops down to there's defibrillators today that are IoT connected. They have literally an IP address, things that we and you use to communicate on our phone. Those things can be hacked, right?
Right.
And so I think the point being is that we're already trusting technology. We're trusting cars to drive us around, like literally. And if you've ever been in a Tesla, it's quite a beautiful experience. I mean, just to see the level of precision. I mean, second level precision in a driving experience, or millisecond level precision in driving experience. There are ways to get to trusting technology, even as the human life depends on it. So, yeah.
So, would you trust genetic editing? You mentioned it, like CRISPR, kind of.
I haven't researched that type of thing. When we start to get to changing the human body, as in changing how our structure or our DNA or RNA or whatever that might be behaves, I am not a subscriber to that philosophy just yet. So, yeah.
Chris, technology can also be used, like we said before. I want to restate this, because I want you to make a point out of this. Technology can also be used to destroy rather than build. What are your thoughts on technology? You already answered a little bit of this on technologies that can monitor labs around the world, and also to detect works of secret labs or works at secret labs. As a software guy, maybe they're already there.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of dirty work that is happening around the world. I mean, I know the Wuhan lab. I don't want to talk about this. I think that one is pretty much monitored, but there are other labs around, that people are doing some crazy and
yeah. I mean, there's this idea of security, cybersecurity. Everything from what might happen in warfare down to what might happen outside to protect people. Everything from drones to surveillance. I think that they have their place, and I think that I've even been on the downside of some of that. Back when I was in college, let's just say I was ahead of my time, and because I was a minority who was ahead of his time, I was suspected of being malevolent or malicious, and had a friend or family member who actually was working for the government, and so they included me in investigations which they would later come back and apologize for, right? And so I think that when we start to look at surveillance, I think they would apologize to that particular person. They just considered me part of the equation. But the point being is that so I think that we have to be very meticulous on how we treat this type of technology. And I think it goes down to obviously a lot of policy and procedure and validation. And just like, our criminal system can't just go out kicking somebody's home and take them out. Like, you need the same level or similar levels of evaluation, checks, balances. And you also need to have some level of input from the common person, right? Because the fact of the matter is, it's just like we're seeing with our current movements, Black Lives Matter. Like, what may be in law doesn't mean that it's the right thing, right?
Right.
So we have to get to a place where, unfortunately, right now, safety, communication, training, policy, to me, are the things that allow for us to properly surveil and be able to take advantage of keeping track of those things. The technology is there. There's new people. There's new startups today putting new satellites out there who are getting deeper, who are able to actually penetrate even the sea in surveillance. And so the technology's there. We just have to be mindful of how we use it.
Interesting. You know what? When I do, when I start on a project, I always start with a why and how I'm going to do it. And I think I've heard this philosophy before. Why I'm doing this, how I'm going to do it, and here is my product. And so my product is pretty much governed by my belief system. So I want to know your leadership style, how it's related to your vision.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. And Simon Sinek, start with why, I think is a very good concept. I actually use that a lot in anything from delegation to just communication and make sure people understand where I'm headed. My leadership style is kind of back to what we talked about. I tend to really be a servant leader. You'll see me. I'll tend to sacrifice myself for the growth of people. I look at what's called the new power, actually, autonomy, mastery, and purpose for any person working in a company. They typically want to be able to be more autonomous in their day-to-day. They typically want to have more expertise. They want to control their own destination. They want to control their own career. And they want to have more purpose. They want to align their own values and their own desires for seeing innovation or life growth. They want to have purpose in what they're doing. They want their purpose to be through their work. And so at any point in time, I am really just trying to help them get that, actually. And obviously, I align our business's objectives with those things, with their goals. And sometimes we have to do, even myself, have to do things that we don't want to do, right, in order to move the company forward. But you'll see 90% of the time, I'm coaching, I'm mentoring, I'm supporting, I'm enabling, I'm challenging so that you can see the destination and get to your destination. And so my leadership style tends to focus on that. It is rare but at sometimes I'm finding myself, being the person who pressures you, right, to that innovation, because if all else fails, I'll use whatever I need to get you to the destination for which you've called out. So
I know you can be really tough.
so be careful of telling me your dreams, because I want you to achieve them, and I'll do anything to help you do that. Just about anything to help you do that.
No, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Tech industry diversity is still struggling to improve. What are the innovative ways to fix this?
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is, how do we fix the diversity challenge? Is that
pretty much?
I'm going to go back to something that I said earlier, and I gave a talk at William Jessup. I was invited there to talk to, I think it was kind of a business leadership class This had to be a few years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, hey, Kristopher, how is it that, you've been able to be successful in these fields? And I told them, I said, since a very young age, maybe I was fortunate to, enjoy, and I'll embarrass myself, playing video games on the computer and just, doing things with my dad was an engineer, so I like technology. That was my form of engineering. He was more kind of, boats and cars and things of that nature. But the point being is that as I got into industry, I didn't look at myself as a minority. I didn't look at myself as underrepresented. Maybe because I was fortunate to grow up in New Orleans, where everyone was a lot like me, and I competed in that area, right? And so, my ability to go out, get a certification. On the weekend, I would go and I would read a book for a couple of hours at a coffee shop that was certification related, and I would go get certifications. And those were good ways for me to show to an employer that I was worth taking the time to talk to. And so I go back to the three pillars of technology expertise that I talked about earlier: education, experience, industry validation, and certification. From a diversity standpoint, there's diversity and inclusion. And I would say that the industry has been quote unquote woke to diversity for some time now. So, I mean, even Steve Jobs, back when he was here with us, he would say things like, I'm looking for more Black engineers. And so, even though the industry hasn't been able to get to a place where there is a lot more inclusion of that, I would say the first thing, if you're a person and you want to cross that chasm, you can clearly look to little people like me who have, started off in very small places. And, I'll say a little bit more about that. The New Orleans public school system at that time, quote unquote, was recognized as one of the top 50 worst public school systems. I didn't know my multiplication tables to the age of 12 years old, and obviously would do a lot to overcome that. But the point is that by the time that I put my effort forward, I would be taking classes at Rice University in upper level calculus. I had the determination, those were not credited for. I would be taking GRE classes so that I could get into the university that outpaced MIT that year, right? And so, and I would just be persistent about my own education, whether that's Khan Academy. It wasn't around at the time, but it's here now. There's just so many ways to challenge your own thinking to get out there. So I would say I like to believe that I can control my destiny. I like to believe that anybody can control their destiny. My first recommendation is to invest in the expertise, whether you're young or old. But I would say that from a macro standpoint, there is a lot that needs to be done from an inclusion standpoint, right? And once you get into the company, will the company create an environment that will keep you? And so I think that first and foremost, employers need to ensure that they're using all the latest tools to ensure that they're evaluating diverse candidates, right? They need to ensure that if there's a new position that includes at least 1, 2, heck, I would say 10 minorities in that for that position. We need to increase the rate of which we see minorities coming to evaluate and be sought out for a position. So I think that's on the company side, and I think once you get them there, I've seen a lot of tech companies go out and say, oh, we want more underrepresented minorities, URMs. I think I've heard that, like who says that? Anyway, the point being is that companies have to get to a place where they're creating a culture that's inclusive. And I think that comes only through talking about it. I'll give this last example. I know this is a bit long-winded, but I want to give some credit to during my time at Chevron, even though they're not in the tech space, there was called a diversity moment. And every meeting that was 30 minutes to an hour or more, someone would share something about diversity. And it was a constant reminder day after day that whether you're a white male, whether you're from a different country, whether you're from the South and you fulfill the traditional African American themes like myself, that you were different, and that actually was what made the company better. And you don't hear that in tech. You don't see that in tech. You don't talk about that in tech until there's an issue. And so we need to make it a part of our day to day. And at Evolute, even you'll see that we're quite a diverse company. We're ensuring that we have not only African American men. We want women to be there. We want majorities. We want minorities. We want everybody to be represented as a part of that. And obviously, we just put forward a plan to invest in churning out over 250 minority technology and business leaders per year, and we're working with some venture capitalists and leaders to do that. The point being is that yes, we believe in investing in our diverse communities and people of my background, or Black females, Latinx, so on and so forth. But we also need to make sure that the inclusion goes every way, and that everyone's being respected at the table. And so my point being is that we need to put priority on diversity and inclusion, and make sure that we have constant conversations to keep the theme and the recognition that we all bring our very best, and that's what makes the company the best.
Excellent. Mentorship. Why is it important?
I would say that in the area of mentorship, I actually have my own mentors. I mentor others. I'll give a shout out to the founder of Puppet, who is a mentor of mine. That's Luke Nice, Avery Lightford, Abby Kearns, and just so many people, Kevin Wilkins, just so many great people that I had the chance to come across. And I think that mentorship's important because a lot of times you can't put the things you need to do in a book. My ability to communicate, to show executive presence, to know the topics to research in an unknown area even, generally might not come from a book. And so I need to understand, how have people before me been successful? And so I personally go out and obviously I have plenty of people I've invested in, from Northeastern University to New Orleans to the Silicon Valley. Actually, I have people internationally I've invested in, from London to the Netherlands, so on and so forth. But I think the point is that mentorship is very important because we're human beings, and everything is not just quantitative books. It's the ability to more or less mimic success, and that comes from relationship, that comes from people.
Wow. And who inspires you the most?
I think that,
or your role model. So.
Are you talking about here or up above? I think I'm very inspired by the message of Jesus Christ. I think that if I had to talk about who inspires me, I would say that I tried not to lean on to a specific individual. Maybe Mr. Jobs might have taken that a bit far. He's that kind of guy. But I would say that I try to be the best of the 5 closest mentors to me. And I'll throw Mr. Adam Jacob, who's also taught in my classes. He's the founder of Chef. So I have people who I am modeling, my growth in my career after. Some are diverse, some are white men. I try to, my goal is to be the very best for what my profession is, and I'll take that from anybody. But my goal is to also be a representative to my community, and show that anyone can make it, and so I'll do anything to represent that.
All right, that's cool. To those who aspire to build a tech company, especially the young people, what is your core message to them?
Yeah,
Because you don't just wake up and say, hey, I want to start my own, so.
yeah. Well, I think I have a couple of messages, and this is just my personal view. I believe that the first thing anyone should do is get expertise.
Okay.
When you try to just create any company, the reason that you're creating this thing is because you are better than anyone else to solve that problem. And I don't care if it's expertise on, people who are ISTJ, right? Or people who are, medical professionals, or it's a super technical technology. Whatever that expertise is, whatever that audience, whatever that customer is, you need to be the very best at it. If you can get to being the best at it, then your ability to pioneer is going to be sustainable, right? And so I look at this both from a minority or a majority perspective. In order to innovate, you actually have to be a leader, right? You are leading the industry. So my first thing is get expertise. My second thing is think of something that is completely, as anyone else would put it, impossible, right? Think about something that you would say, okay, most people would say that this couldn't be done. But based on my experiences, and notice your own experiences, I believe that there's a way to actually change this particular thing, or I believe there's a way to actually build this particular thing. And yeah, it's going to take a little bit of some things that I don't even know about yet, but I can see some areas coming together, both in my profession and out my profession, and I believe I can do this. And just like the Amazon working backwards approach, set the goal, set the target, and work backwards. And so my last part of that is anything that takes you 3 months to create, it needs to have a return in 12 months. Anything that takes you 12 months to create, it has to have 100x return in the next 3 years. And if you believe that it will have that level of impact on people, then you will be successful in entrepreneurship.
Chris, last word. Your message of hope, especially during this time, man.
Yeah. I think during this time, we all have to look at, how as human beings we responded, and we have to recognize that even as we look out, we've recognized that even our country's leadership has said, we don't know how to call this one. The point being is that there's something bigger than ourselves. And so my hope, again, comes from my faith. And maybe I'll give you a little bit of faith today. If you see how we're responding as people on this earth, and we're overcoming, and we're tackling challenges, we're tackling heartaches, just know that it's possible for you to do that as well. If you're inspired by entrepreneurs who have gone out like Zoom and probably gone from billion to several billionaires, know that you can create technology too that is special and can change people. And so, it is my humble belief that during the times of this pandemic, it's actually, we have to be safe, but it's actually a time where the best innovations come out. And so use the isolation, use the tough times to think about creatively what you can change, and obviously take care of yourself, but take the first step in changing your life, changing whether that's your health or creating a new technology company. You can do it. And so I'm believing in people to go out and do their very best.